Well, I think it's quite a bit concerning. Now, I know my guess is Brew and Wildes will not be concerned until Colin Cowherd's men on the ground report that his arm is sore, as happened with Trey Lance. However, I'm going to go ahead and say Sean McVay is talking about it and them holding him out of practice is enough confirmation that we need that there actually is an NFC West quarterback dealing with some slight arm issues. Now, I'm very high on the Rams, not high enough to pick them to repeat as Super Bowl champions, but I do think they should be one of the two best teams in the conference this year. However, the bleep them pick strategy does have a downside, and the downside is they have built a very top-heavy roster. Now, no team can deal with the loss of its star quarterback for a long period of time, so that is not unique to them. But when you look at how they've built their team, having superstar, you could argue they have the best defensive player in football, the best corner in football. Some would argue the best wide receiver in football. When you build your team like that, you are not going to have the depth in other places. The other reason this is concerning to me, Brew, is the biggest question mark on their team right now, in my opinion, is offensive line. They were, Whitworth finally retired, and now they have call it somewhat inexperienced or at least lack of accomplishments across that offensive line. So all of these are minor concerns that build up to a potential major concern, because I know John Wolford got some playoff reps not that long ago, but he is not a guy you want to be going into the season with. And so, this isn't disastrous news, but it's obviously concerning news for the defending Super Bowl champs.
All right, first let me say this. Colin Cowherd is absolutely plugged in. All right, we'll get to his insider information later on when we talk about Trey Lance and the Niners. But I'm going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, Nick, I'll go with the 3 on Stafford. So I'm not predicting doom, but I don't think it's the mere arm fatigue that we've heard bandied about this preseason. Here's the timeline with this. He had some pain in his elbow last year, so it's encouraging that he played through it and he played well through it. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl. And then he had the anti-inflammatory injection in the offseason that they thought would, alleviate the pain. He didn't throw in OTAs or mini camp, and he goes to training camp full bore. Initially, he's full bore. He's doing everything. And then a few days ago, the elbow starts to bother him. Probably was a surprise to the Rams. They may not admit it, but probably was a surprise. And now he's not going to throw in team drills the rest of training camp. So it's something to worry about. This is a team that obviously they want him to develop some chemistry and timing with their free agent wide receiver, Allen Robinson, who they just got. So I do think that it's something to be a bit concerned about. Don't overreact. But anytime I hear a quarterback his situation compared to a pitcher in Major League Baseball, when I look how often pitchers get hurt in MLB, that ain't good. I don't like that. So I'm not going to, again, predict doom, but I do think this is something to keep under the radar or on the radar, Wildes. Yep. I'm going 3 on a scale of 1 to 10.
3. Okay, so I've had some time to digest this news, and I actually got it a little bit early. And it's not because I'm necessarily a plugged-in NFL insider, but I am a huge John Wolford fan. And when the wolf howl came up from California, my ears perked up. I'm like, I think Wolford's going to get some snaps here. And next thing you know, he was. So I've had extra time to digest this information. But here's the thing. Broussard, about the MLB injury, we just saw this last year. It was a big story, and then it went away. It was Dak Prescott dealt with a similar injury, I think, because it was called a pitcher's injury. It was Jay Glazer reporting it. And here's the headline from Sports Illustrated. The Rangers, remember the Texas Rangers came in, helping Cowboys QB Dak with injury. What matters is the course of repair to the strain, which is where the baseball injury comes into play. He worked on it. He got through it. Then next thing you know, week 1 against the Bucks, he threw for 400 yards, and in the season he ended up throwing for almost 4,500 yards. So I'm not that worried about the baseball injury. And if it is a thing, and I'm not joking here, I do think John Wolfert can kind of stop the bleeding if Stafford does need a little bit extra time.
Wolfert.
So what I would
go ahead.
What I would say there is, if I remember correctly, Dak, though, it was more of a shoulder. They were worried more of the shoulder area than the elbow tendinitis. But yes, it was that Glazer was saying it was a baseball issue or an injury similar to baseball. Yeah, that's right. It was armpit. It was under the shoulder. You're exactly right. Here would be the concern for Stafford, and then the concern for the Rams. The concern for Stafford is, in his last 2 seasons combined in Detroit, he threw about 830 passes and played in 24 games. Last year with the Rams, he threw 740 passes and played in 21 games. The amount of football that because of the extra game, they didn't have a bye, they played in the Super Bowl. That's a ton of reps and a ton of football for a guy that in his 30s hadn't been playing nearly as much because he'd been injured one year and because obviously the Lions weren't making the playoffs. The other concern for the Rams is this. There are tough schedules, and then there's what the Rams have. I think we can show it. They have the NFC West, which has 2 very legitimate teams in it. Their cross-conference is the AFC West, which is the conference I think, Brew, everyone thinks is going to be the best in football. And then you also have Buffalo, Tampa, Dallas, and Green Bay. So you're looking at, 12 of your 17 games are brutal games. 12 of your 17 games are against either the Cardinals, the Niners, the 4 teams in the AFC West, and the teams I just mentioned, Buffalo, Tampa, Dallas, and Green Bay. So there's not a lot of margin for error within that division, even if there is within the conference. And one of the things that helped them last year, I believe, Brew, greatly, was they won that because of winning that division, you are positioned, advantageously, obviously, come the postseason. And so I don't think anyone thinks the Rams are going to miss the playoffs or be in that position. But it's a much harder road if you're on the road, no pun intended, every game of the postseason, like the Niners had to deal with when they ended up going to Los Angeles for that conference championship game.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.